Oh, Lumec, you're a clever man. I would call you a genius, except I'm in the room. But everything you invented, you did to fight your sickness. And that's brilliant. That's so human. But once you get rid of sickness and mortality, then what's to strive for, huh? Cybermen won't advance. They'll just stop. You'll stay there like this forever. A metal Earth with metal men with metal thoughts. Lacking the one thing that makes this planet so alive. People. Ordinary, stupid, brilliant people. Hello and welcome back to the Doctor Who Marathon. I'm your host McEdam, and today we're going to be talking about the two-parter Rise of the Cybermen and the Age of Steel, written by Tom McCrane and directed by Graham Harper. Yes, classic Who director, who has also directed such classics as The Caves of Andrew's Army, returns to the revived series to direct this story, and he also directed a handful of stories later down the line. We'll also be talking about the Tardisodes episodes, Tardisodes 5 and 6, I believe they are. The prequel shorts for each story, each episode of this two-parter. This story, of course, sees the return of the Cybermen, now giving them a new origin story. This story was semi-based off the audio drama Spare Parts, written by Mark Platt. Because of that, Mark Platt actually gets a thank you note in the credits. If you were ever wondering what the thank you for was in the credits. Now, I have a very complicated relationship with this story. When it aired, when it first came out, I was thrilled. I was pumped. I loved every second of it. To see the new Cybermen, one of my favourite Doctor Who monsters, reprise their role. Sure, they were a lot different from what I remembered, but I was just so happy to have them just back on our screens. When I became like a teenager and became, I guess some would consider a self-obsessed nerd who wants to keep everything like the pure, it was better in the old days kind of thing. I started to dislike this story, and not just dislike, but absolutely hated it. And I went through this really childish phase, of basically having to shout my opinions in other people's faces. In fact, there's an example when I was in college and my best mate, we were actually talking about the Cybermen, and I was stating why I prefer the classic series, the Mondasian Cybermen as we call them, even though some of them are from Telos, so the phasing of that doesn't really work. And he was explaining why he likes the new revived series Cybermen, the Cybermen as they're called in this, at least what they're generally called by viewing audiences. And our argument got so heated that this person, mind you, I hang around with nerds. I'm a nerd, I hang around with nerds. We don't usually use phrases like this, but the argument got so heated that he literally just turned around and just went, I don't care, it's a bloody television program. And yeah, it's something I have always kind of regretted, but it is kind of funny in a way. And I know it, and we still talk, and we still have a laugh about it in a sense. But, I just wanted to say that as an example of just how my opinion of this story has changed over time. And I went through a phase of absolutely hating this story. But as I've matured now, does this story hold up? Does this story deserve my praise when I first watched it, when it first came out? Or was I justified in my anger? Obviously not. Nothing can justify anger like that. But does this story deserve the hate that I implied on it, if that makes sense? Don't know. Well, we'll get to see. And before I get into it, this is the Cyberman Collection Dvd, which contains 2 discs. I've taken it out, so it's only got 1 disc in here, which is the first two-parter. The second Cyberman two-parter is also on it, and I own that. And like always with these official DVD covers, I print out my own DVD cover up here. So let's put this together and we can compare them. 1, 2, 3. There you go. So that's the DVD cover I've used to put on my shelf, so it looks a lot tidier. This cover is really jam-packed. This is created by Christopher Doctor Who DVD Covers, who is an amazing DVD replacement artist. If you're interested in these, I highly recommend him out. You could just type in Christopher Doctor Who DVD Covers on Google and it'll be the first thing that comes up. Really like the artwork there. Here's the spine, if anyone is interested, with David Tennant there. That handsome man. Easily the handsomest Doctor who's ever lived. I mean, seriously, that man can have anybody he wants, let's be honest. And here's the back, if anyone's interested. So there you go, let's get into the story. But before I do, the connection between the Tardisodes and the actual episodes, the order of viewing goes, the first Tardisode, I believe it's Tardisode, it's either 4 or 5. Actually, I think it is 5. Then it goes Rise of the Cybermen. Then it goes Tardisode 6 or 7, depending on which one it is. And then we have the Age of Steel. Okay? So that's the way I've been watching it. So, onto the adventure at hand. So, Tardisode 5 is basically just Mickey in his van looking up a video from Gemini, a undercover agent of sort who's leaking out information about Lumec Industries. And this, right off the bat, sets us many questions into the story. What's Mickey doing without the Doctor and Rose? How is he even back on Earth? Why is he investigating Lumec Industries? What is Lumec Industries? Why are they so villainous? What's going on? This is a great short little prequel episode to head into our main event. So basically, Tardisode 5 gets a pass, and I highly recommend you watching it just to get a bit of the flavour of what's going on. So our actual story, The Rise of the Cybermen, starts off with the Doctor, Rose and Mickey inside the TARDIS having a bit of a laugh, or at least 2/3 of our TARDIS team having a laugh, as we can clearly see a great disconnect between our characters, as Rose and the Doctor are clearly laughing, joking, having some in-jokes and stuff, whereas Mickey's just kind of listening in as he's holding a button, and the Doctor has seemingly forgotten that he has been holding this button for half an hour, even though he was only supposed to hold it for seemingly a minute. And now this causes a crash inside the time vortex, in which the time vortex itself seemingly disappears. This shoves the Doctor, Rose and Mickey, who's inside the TARDIS, into a parallel universe in which Zeppelins are a popular way of travel on the planet of Earth, and as well there's a massive industry, Lumec Industries, that have Cyber's Industries, shall we say, who basically run most, if not a majority of organisations. Also in this world, Rose Tyler's father, Peter Tyler, is not only alive, but he's also a successful businessman who sells these soda drinks out to the world, and his company has just been bought by Cyber's Industries, run by John Lumec. The pre-credit scene actually has Lumec create a Cyberman, so there's not really much of a mystery there in terms of who the villains are. I mean, the story is called Rise of the Cybermen. Like, what were you expecting? As he makes the Cyberman kill this person, as he plans to give this information to Geneva, as it's technically a new form of life. Now we've got the setup of the story, as Rose is basically tempted to see her father, as the Doctor is basically forbidden her, as this is, as he describes, a gingerbread house full of loads of temptations, stuff that makes Rose want to stay on this version of Earth. Now, let's get one thing right at the back. I am not a fan of how the 10th Doctor is written at the start of this story. He is immediately confrontational with Rose. I get it, you know, it's a parallel universe, and it's in a universe in which her father's alive and well, a successful businessman, and she really wants to see her father. But the Doctor is straight away is like, no, you can't see him. This is not your Pete. This is a Pete from an alternate universe. This seems like a massive contrast between the Doctor we see now and the Doctor that we've seen in Father's Day. Remember, the Doctor let her go back in time to see her father to the moment that he died. And now the Doctor is completely forbidden it. It kind of makes the Doctor seem like a controlling personality. Luckily, however, when the story gets more developed, more into the line of the things, then that becomes a lot more soft and a lot more well realised throughout the adventure of the story. But another thing on this story is the relationship between Rose and the Doctor, between Mickey. It's clear right off the bat that Mickey has been underappreciated in this adventure. In fact, in any of his adventures, he's, as he describes himself, he's the tin dog. He is technically K9. Well, technically not K9, because K9 was such an active character until the writers had to basically force ways for him to be obsolete, which I find really funny. But Mickey, he clearly gets this, you clearly get this idea that despite him wanting to be on the TARDIS, despite him saying to himself, right, I'm finally ready to see this universe, to see this travelling, he's not fitting in with the Doctor and Rose. Now, I don't like how the characters start off with Mickey in this. I mean, the Doctor and Rose is supposed to be our likeable characters, our main characters. And they seem to ignore Mickey for seemingly no reason. They seemingly, like, it's not like he doesn't fit in. He's still thrived by this adventure. He's still excited by everything. It's just the Doctor and Rose feel like they're better off just the two of them, I guess. There's a really intense scenes, but there's scenes in which the Doctor is worried about Rose and how this place is basically a massive trap. And Mickey is like, oh, so there's nothing to tempt me. And the Doctor just kind of like blanks him out because I don't know, I can't worry about everything. I really hate that line. But this does mean that this story actually starts tackling this dynamic, this relationship. And what Tom McCrane does with Mickey is absolutely genius. Essentially what he does is, he knows that Mickey is underappreciated. And he seems like me when I was watching these, felt like Mickey deserves so much better, and this story gives him so much better. We learn a lot more about his character. We're also tackling with the dynamic of Mickey being underappreciated. That's what part of this story is, which means that Mickey is easily the best character in this story, as Rose basically is like, right, I'm going to go and see my father, and because she learns that there is no Rose Tyler. There's a Jackie Tyler. He's still married to Jackie, but there's no Rose Tyler. They didn't have a child. And the Doctor's like, you stay here. Can Mickey help me? And then Mickey, basically realising that we're in a parallel universe, he can go and see an individual, someone that he is tempted to. And the Doctor is like, what have you got to look forward to? And he's like, you don't even know me. You don't know what I am. And we get this great scene in which the Doctor's kind of like, he doesn't know who to pick, but Mickey is like, it's going to be her. You're never, ever going to pick me, are you? And the Doctor runs off after Rose. This means the storyline does something quite interesting. It not only, now we have two plots. We have an A plot, a B plot, a back of the ranch storytelling, but each story does something very unique. The Doctor and Rose plot actually develops the the main plot further as we see Jackie's, Peter's, how they live their life. We learn a bit more about Lumec Industries and how they're basically trying to get a meeting with the President of the United Kingdom, not the Prime Minister, the President of the United Kingdoms, who basically believes that just John Lumec is this absolute madman. And mainly in the first half of the story anyway, that is mainly their role, is their plot. There's also some really fun moments with the Doctor and Rose's plot line. One of my favourite moments is actually the revelation that in this universe, Rose isn't isn't Peter and Jackie's daughter. No, they didn't have a child in this timeline. Instead, they have a Rose the dog. They got a puppy and they named it Rose. It's not only absolutely hilarious, but the Doctor loves it as well. I am 100% certain that that laugh the 10th Doctor does was actually David Tennant, an outtake. Because that laugh seems proper genuine as the Doctor slowly clicks together as he's looking into Peter's computers that Lumec Industries, Cyber's Industries, and he sees how they connect through the earplugs and how they make these handlebars as the Doctor realises Cybermen as he runs out to the world. And this is probably a great time also to talk about Graham Harper's directing. This story looks absolutely gorgeous, and one of the things that stands out in this story is the Cybermen. What I absolutely love about this story, which is really rare, we don't get a lot of great scenes showing the Cyberman like straightforward. They're always blurred. They're always like in the background. You can hear their stomping. You can hear their voices. They're like as like the light is shining behind them. We never get a good look until the very end. But they're still in a majority of the first episode, which means that not only do we feel their presence, but we're still building up to their official reveal, the first time that we see them head to toe. And that is just absolutely stunning. There's some really great. I love the shot in which the camera like pans up and we see the Cyberman's eye for the first time, which also introduces the teardrop motif, which hasn't been seen since the invasion, I believe, or maybe before the invasion, back in the 60s. This teardrop was never seen in the 70s or 80s, I think. So let's start. The Cybermen, actually let's save the Cybermen for later. But back with Mickey, we actually get a much more personal character plot line. He meets up with his grandmother, who in his timeline, in his universe, had died after she fell on some stairs and broke her neck after the carpet on her stairs was ripped apart. And in this universe, she's alive. And there's this and what's really great is that Rose and the Doctor are seeing the people who are in the higher up, the influencers, the main action, the main causes. Mickey is in on the lower streets. He's seeing what the average life of this universe is. And that is such great world building. There's a great moment where the Mickeys go in to see his grandmother, but gets stopped by some military individuals. And when Mickey's like, can I pass? It's like, yeah, the curfew doesn't start till 10. There's a curfew? Yeah, where have you been? Up with the tops, have you? I wish. And they let go. And Mickey's just like, well, this is weird. This is strange. Clearly, there's something strange going on. We never really find out what the curfew is for. It's just a little bit of world building that really sets this story apart from others. And we get this really, really powerful scene where Mickey meets his alternate universe grandmother who has survived. And Mickey's character has started off in Rose as this bumbling idiot. And throughout throughout his adventures, he gets slowly more mature. And this scene where he basically breaks down in front of his gran, he's like, I'm so stupid. I should have done it. I should have fixed the carpet years ago. I am just useless. I am ridiculous. I'm so sorry. I'm never going to leave your sight again. You really feel for Mickey. And it's also here that we learn that in this universe, Mickey isn't named Mickey. His name is Ricky, which is a joke from season 1 in which the Ninth Doctor calls him Ricky for some reason. And he gets then captured by this group. They're called the Preachers, which this universe is Ricky is a part of, as we get introduced to what's that boy's name? I can't remember, but he's the presenter from Blue Peter. It's that guy that used to be everywhere on like kids television when I was growing up, and now we don't see him anywhere. And we also have I think her name is Miss Brooke, this woman, and basically they are going against the system. Everybody in this world have these earpods that connects them to Lumec Industries. They're basically this universe's version of an iPhone, the highest technology that gets all of this information downloaded into their brains. And it's also here where Mickey gets to learn about like how Ricky in this universe is this bad boy. He's basically this action man. And he is now London's most wanted, and there's a scene where they go into their base of operations, but someone's there, and when they go into the base of operations, it's this universe's Ricky, and Noel Clarke is a fantastic actor. He's a phenomenal performance in here. Mickey and Ricky are so different personality-wise. However, you know, the performance, you can clearly see there's a difference. But, my God, it's strange to believe that they are performed by the same person using, like, green screen and, like, double exposure effects and stuff like that to show Noel Clarke in two places at once. And some of the timing on some of the shots are some really well handled. Graham Harper, it's just, how did he do that? Noel Clarke, how did he perform these characters and make them feel so different? It's ridiculous. And like I said, this element allows us to see what this world is doing to the lesser individuals, the people who aren't getting around. As well as these characters, we also see Lumec Industries capturing and stealing homeless people from the streets and then converting them into mindless droids before transforming them into Cybermen. And that is just, the story is a massive build-up to the Cyberman plot. But we get to see the lower world, we get to see what this world does to these people at the start. Now, with the Cybermen, this story tackles something which, surprisingly, television-wise, hasn't been tackled before. It's been tackled, like, basically in every Cyberman story in Big Finish audio dramas, novels, comic books, and all that. But this is a story which we rarely see on TV, and is probably the first. And that is, it actually deals with the consequences of turning into a Cyberman. We actually see characters that we or at least one character that we see grow and gets captured by the Cybermen, who gets, and we actually tackle the idea of these homeless people. They were once Cybermen once, and now they've been transformed into humans. And the concept of it is right there. It's something which was borrowed from Spare Parts. That's one of the elements that influenced this story. So it's not really original, but it's original for exclusively for the TV stories. As the Cybermen then bunched into Jackie Tyler's birthday party and assassinate the president of the United Kingdom and start going around and killing everybody in the in the facility as the Doctor, Rose, meets up with the preachers, and Pete Tyler, who has escaped. They all get surrounded by Cybermen who shout out delete, 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 and that's our cliffhanger for part 1. Now let's actually get into the Cybermen in this story, because this is one of the things which one of the elements of the story which, or at least the Cybermen stories of the new series, which I had issues with when I was a grumpy little teenager. The Cybermen here are vastly different to what we've seen in Mondas, in the classic series. In those stories, despite them supposedly being robots, there's still elements in the way they speak, in the way they talk, that suggests that they were once living creatures. As the cyber controller once said, we must survive, we will survive, implying that they are living creatures that are just trying to survive. Then when we went into the 80s, the stories then took the Cybermen's dialogue and basically not forget about their emotional inhibitors, the ideas of the Cybermen not having emotions, but the way they speak, the way they act, doesn't have this implication. And there's a reason for it. Eric Saywood, who wrote Earthshock, explained you can't have the Doctor just argue with the computer. That would be uninterested. That's why the Cybermen there, their vocabulary is so filled with expressions like excellent, which is just such a cool catchphrase, and they seem to take pride in the fact that they can manipulate the Doctor in those stories, and that's great. Here, the Cybermen, in terms of how they're written, in terms of their speech now, not as in the story surrounding them, and the way they are performed, are purely robotized. They're completely robot in a sense. Now, for a new generation of Doctor Who fans, for a new way to open up the Cybermen, this makes sense, because we can't now go into a world where we're in a much more serious and much more realistic environment. You can't just imply that these creatures don't have emotions and have them act like as if they do. No, they've now got to be completely emotionless. They've got to talk like robots. They've got to sound like robots, as they basically now proclaim that they are the upgrade of humanity. They say stuff like the process is compulsory. They don't use the word excellent anymore. They seem to repeat phrases all the time. Now, this means that for a new audience, for a new people, I think that makes sense. And it is, in a way, horrifying to think that, these were once humans and now they're just completely robotized. Something which is the base, one of the foundations of the Cybermen. They were once people and now they're robotized. The issue is that when the story doesn't focus on the human aspect, when the story isn't constantly mentioning the fact that they are once humans and they are once living creatures that turn into robots, we as an audience viewer do have this disconnect. We can easily now separate the past human aspect to their Cybermen forms. This is a problem which, after rewatching the story, isn't that present in this adventure. This story does tackle a lot of elements with the Cybermen. There's a great example later on in which the Doctor actually knocks out one of their emotional inhibitors, which is a great scene. But in later stories, especially in the next story with them and the story after that, the fact that they don't mention that they were once human, or at least they don't, the mention only gets like 1 or 2 scenes, means that these Cybermen in certain stories are just robots, that the audience can't really connect with the fact that they were once human. Also, with the dialogue, as I stated with Earthshock, Eric Sadewood had the philosophy that you can't have the Doctor arguing with a robot. You will get bored of that. And personally, I don't like the delete catchphrase of the Cybermen. It's not as powerful, it's not as catchy as excellent, and it's not as meaningful, and it's not as creepy or disturbing as the we must survive, we will survive catchphrase. The delete makes this conjunction between human and robot much more present, and again, it really, and personally I found it, despite it being a more realistic terms, a realistic rendition of the Cybermen, I found the catchphrase extremely silly sometimes, especially when we had that cliffhanger and we had that Cyberman just going, delete, delete, and the camera pans up to his face, keeps cutting to his face, and it's like, if these are robots, they wouldn't constantly, they're like, the more robotized, but because they keep saying delete, it seems like really cheesy and off for this rendition of the Cybermen. Really, really bizarre. So before I get into the majority of the next story, which the next episode, we got Tardisode 6, which is the small little episode that ties into the Age of Steel. Now this is a small clip that Lumec released, basically stated to the Cybermen that production must start worldwide. He has had Cybermen factories secretly building up in Paris, in Germany, in just all around the world. We see a map. This is strangely odd because the voiceover, which is presented as someone who working for Lumec, is the same voice that Gemini was using in the video in the last Tardisode. It's the exact same voice. Huh? So, is this person secretly working with or against the preachers? I don't understand what's going on here. Gemini turns out to be Pete Tyler, by the way. Yeah, there's nothing really much to talk about there. Now, Age of Steel. Now, this after our characters all connect, the Doctor shoots a beam, destroying all our Cybermen in the facility as they take their van, and it's like, right, they've got to get away. They've got to take down Lumec Industries, and there's this really weird bit where the Doctor is like, despite him being a madman, he's still a businessman. He just assassinated the president. Which brings up a big plot hole. Something which, I'm going to say, if you don't want this story ruined, turn off now, because this plot hole is going to ruin this story for you. It's one of those things that when you noticed it, when you realise it, when it clicks in your head, you'll never watch this story the same way again, and it will always stick out. Okay, so you ready? Why does John Lumec want to turn everyone else into Cybermen? Sure, we have him, his immortality. He wants to bring people, he wants to keep himself immortal. But why everyone else? Why does he want to force this system onto everyone else? Like, I get the idea now, he wants to be alive forever and stuff, but why does he want to keep that to everyone else? And the only real answer is that he's cuckoo for Cocoa Pops. And in fact, it's shown multiple times that he has the ability to control people's brains. Like, he assassinated the president of Great Britain. Like, where strategically was that an advantage for him? He was wearing the earplugs. He could have easily gotten into his brain and made him make a speech and going, yes, this thing that Lumec is doing, it's perfectly sound. It's perfectly fine. He's allowed to continue it. But no, he kills him for some reason. Like, yeah, it's one of those things that when you think about it, Lumec's plan doesn't work. Now, don't get me wrong, the performance is fan-bloody-tastic. He's played by bloody, what's his name from Only Fools and Horses? Not Trigger. Is it Trigger? Oh my god, my brain's blanking out for a moment. And the other guy from The Vicar of Dublin. I do apologise, my brain has just gone, I've broken a fuse in my own head. He does a great performance here, and he gets a lot of great scenes. There's a lot of great close-ups with him, and there's a lot of great dialogue. I love the bit at the start where he's like, and how will you do that from beyond the grave? The other guy's like, I don't understand. Kill him. It's just absolutely, he's just full of power. But when you think about his plan, and everything really revolving around the human aspect of the bad guys, really doesn't work. A great example is actually one of his henchmen. I can't remember his name, but he seems to be a willing worker for Lumec. He knows what they're doing. He knows what he's a willing participant of stealing the homeless people, mind controlling them, and then converting them into Cybermen. He knows about the Cybermen. He knows about Lumec's plan. And then all of a sudden, Lumec tries to control him, and his ears, the ear pods start electrifying and stuff. And then he's somehow, for some reason, surprised by the fact that Lumec tried this. I mean, what were you thinking would happen? And then all of a sudden, he is going against Lumec and comes up with this plan, and basically he pretends to be a willing volunteer to get close to him, and then pulling out the wires and to try and kill him, which actually pushes the Cybermen further into turning him into a Cyberman himself, the Lumec into the cyber controller. Like, this character, which I like, again, he's a fun character. He has some really great fun moments with great dialogue. But when you think about his character too much, it doesn't make a lick of sense. We got scenes where people are being slaughtered and stuff, and he is joyfully dancing to music. A wimbo it, a wimbo it, a wimbo it, a wimbo it. By the way, I really don't like that scene. I feel like it's a bit too silly for the story that we're telling, and it really takes the dramatic aspect of that scene right out. Like the homeless people have just been kidnapped and turned into Cybermen, and we get this whole silly music and this guy dancing along. It's really stupid. Like, doesn't make any sense. But anyway, the Doctor then goes into the Doctor Rose. Basically, our team go into groups of twos as the Doctor and the female preacher, I want to say Mrs. Brooker, they go into the tunnels to try and get to Lumec from the outside. Rose and Peter go through the front door, pretending to be converted, hypnotized people to try and find Jackie Tyler and save her. And Doctor originally takes the boy who I know from Blue Peter, to go up to Lumec's Zeppelin to try and take down the signal to give people their minds back, their souls back. And he completely forgets about Mickey. And we get a scene in which he's like, no, I'm not staying here with as a tin dog. I'm going with him. Also, I forgot to mention, there's a fantastic scene in which the Cybermen are chasing Mickey and Ricky, and Ricky gets murdered right in front of Mickey's eyes, and he just looks out to the gate, and you just see the Cybermen just silently standing there. It's really creepy. Again, that's Graham Harper's directing 101, and the way Noel Clarke plays him, you can see that's the moment when Mickey has gone from the silly tin dog character to an independent, mature adult in the adventure. As he basically is like, right, nobody's telling me what to do. I'm going to help this guy get to the Zeppelin, and there's nothing you can do about it. So now the plot now has a back of the ranch, back of the ranch, back of the ranch storytelling, as we have 3 plot lines, which means that episode 2 of this 2-part, the Age of Steel, is very underlined, in my opinion. For one, the Rose and Peter storyline goes absolutely nowhere. Sure, they learn that Jackie Tyler has been turned into a Cyberman, and then they get captured. But apart from really the revelation that Jackie is now a Cyberman, which is a great aspect of these were once humans, and now they are emotionless Cybermen, there's nothing really there for the plot to do. There's nothing really for them to do, apart from really waste a bit of screen time until I just realised Rose does nothing at the end of this adventure. The Doctor and the character that he's with in this adventure, they have a few scenes in the tunnels, and again, majority of times it goes nowhere. There's a great moment in which they look down and they see Cybermen, and there's and it's treated as a jump scare, but it would have been so cool, so terrifying if they realise it's like, oh God, all of these people were once human, all of these people were once homeless people. How many people did they kidnap and taken down here to be processed? Like, that's just insane. But nothing like that ever happens. It's the Doctor and this character just basically just talk about how about their like personal lives and their secrets, and how she had a husband and she used to work for Cybers Industries, but she accidentally opened a file she shouldn't have read, and suddenly the government was all out over her, so now she had to basically run from the law. And this bit, has some great aspects in it. The chase scenes are a bit underlined, they're a bit too short in my opinion, but there are some great intense shots, but that's purely because of Graham Harper. And then we get the infamous scene in which this character, she throws a bomb at one of the Cybermen, an electrical bomb, which turns off the emotional inhibitor, and we get a really sad moment where we realise that this Cyberman was once this woman, and she'd been converted the night before she was bound to be married, and now she is this horrible Cyberman, and the Doctor basically puts her to sleep. And it's here where basically he learns, it's like, right, maybe we can use the emotional inhibitors, we turn them off, and we can give all the Cybermen their soul back and hopefully kill them all. It's like the best we can do, really. And that bit is like really good. There's nothing really much interesting there, apart from when the scenes start kicking in. But yeah, that's the main plot line of that. The best plot line by far is the Mickey and this other character's plot line. Slowly throughout their travels do they befriend each other, and we get great moments when they're in the Zeppelin, where Mickey's like working on a computer. There's a great scene in which the Cyberman, which they believe is an ornament, comes to life, and the Doctor, Mickey tricks it into smashing an electrical device to stop the signals, giving the people their souls back, an electrical pulse. And the Doctor, he then gets a video footage of the Doctor, who is now being captured by the Cybermen, as he gets introduced to the Cyber Controller, who looks absolutely gorgeous, but really is a very weak character. He's played by, he's not like voiced by Nicholas Briggs, who voices all the other Cybermen in this story, he is voiced by the actor who played John Lumec, which means this Cyberman still has the personality, which I liked about the classic Cybermen, how they don't talk like robots, you know, but really his dialogue here isn't that interesting. He just comes off as a raveling madman. He doesn't, like the cyber leader from the 80s Cybermen trilogy, he doesn't question the Doctor about morality and choice. Actually, I tell a lie, he does, but never gets so thing. The Doctor is always throughout the adventure knows that he's in the right, and the Doctor does this like speeches about how amazing humans are and how brilliant all their minds is and stuff. But yeah, it's not like the scene in Earthshock where the Doctor questions the cyber leader about the tea and stuff, and then the cyber leader basically proves that he is in the right when he threatens Nessa. We never get a scene like that here. It's just, I am a Cyberman, we will delete all emotions. But why? Emotions are so amazing. But we are, your emotions give you pain, we will take your pain away. Yeah, well, you're just stupid robots. We are like our emotions. Thank you. Like, there's nothing really, like, the speech is really good, don't get me wrong. But because the Doctor, because the villain he's talking to is, his speech feels a lot more ranty than it does any cohesion with his dialogue. There's not a lot of meat onto the bone, if that makes any sense. However, we do get a great ending, a conclusion to the story, as Mickey's watching the video and the Doctor is basically hinting anybody can use computers today, like a genius, an average man, an idiot, which is something he calls Mickey the idiot, and basically implies him on how to get the signal to stop the emotional inhibitors and connect it to the phone. So the Doctor puts it in his device, bring all the Cybermen's emotion back, killing them all, with the exception of the cyber controller. This is a Deus Ex Machina. This is the Doctor getting a quick and easy solution out of the problem. However, it does not feel forced. It feels like a genuine great conclusion. Why is that? The answer is Mickey Smith. Throughout the entire adventure, throughout this entire story, he's been neglected by our main characters. He's been in the background. He's been in the outside the eye line of our main characters and our main story. But he knows he's destined for more. He knows that he is grounded for more. And so his plotline brings him to this Deus Ex Machina. It's he who gets into the situation where he becomes the main person. It's him being neglected. It's him being ignored by everybody who thinks he's just nobody to really focus on. It's this plotline, this dynamic, that allows him to get into situations which puts him in a much more strong advantage than any other character. This means that this Deus Ex Machina does not feel like a bad ending, because it's Mickey Smith, the underdog, the underappreciated, is the one who saves the day. Which then leads into a final action scene in which the Doctor, Rose and Peter are getting chased by the cyber leader on the Zeppelin ladder, and the cyber leader then cyber controller falls to his death, and the Doctor cuts then later on where the Doctor is getting ready to go back into the main universe, where Mickey then announces that he wants to stay in this timeline. There's nothing left for him in the main timeline. He knows that Rose doesn't love him anymore. Sure, they're friends, but their relationship is not what they're going to be. They've outgrown each other, and his ending is so sad. It's so heart-wrenching, because we can clearly see that the dynamic between him and Rose, like they want to spare each other's feelings. They're still great friends, but they clearly aren't as close as they once were. That might be because of the Doctor's influence. It might just be because of all of their experiences that they've seen. Oh, and Mickey kind of is like, right, I get neglected with you, but here I can make a difference. Here, staying here, I can be someone. I can make something of my own. And that is how you end a character. That's how you make a character leave a series. That's just a great way. And I really like how the story gives us a little bit of time for Rose to go back into the main timeline, into the main universe, to meet up with Jackie and have us a little hug, a little sweet little moment at the end. And there you go, that's Rise of the Cybermen and the Age of Steel with Tardisodes 5 and 6. Overall, and this story, like you can probably tell by this video, this story is all over the place. There's stuff I absolutely love about this adventure, especially when it comes to Mickey and some aspects of the Cybermen. There's some elements I really hate, like some of the way, sometimes how the Cybermen are written, and mainly the villains, and somehow the Doctor at the start of this story, even though when it comes to Mickey, that actually plays a part in the plot and is actually this story benefits from it. It's just a colossal mix bag. But I don't know if I like it or hate it. It's a story which, depending on which aspects I'm focusing on at the time, is a story I either really love or really hate. And that is probably one of the best descriptions for any story, really, because it means now every time I watch this, I always have a different emotion. Sometimes I'm really ranty, and I can have a laugh at just how much I hate certain aspects, and sometimes I can really get invested and really enjoy the adventure that it's telling. Also, I want to state as well, sadly, this is the only Cyberman story in which I like the Cybermen in the revived series. We'll tackle more when we talk about other Cybermen stories, but here is the only real Cybermen story that I personally enjoy. At least I enjoyed them in this story. But there you go, that's Rise of the Cybermen and the Age of Steel. So join me next time when the Doctor and Rose goes to witness the coronation of Queen Elizabeth, but something is mysteriously happening around a small village as people's faces seem to be stolen. So join me next time for Tardisode 7 and the Idiot's Lantern. And I'll see you next time on the Doctor Who Marathon. Ta-ra!